Hi, and welcome to the Aston Fisher Leadership Series, the podcast where we get the chance to speak to industry leaders and take a deep dive into some of the challenges they face in their careers and how they solve them. Before you switch off, don't worry, it's not all work chat. On the podcast, we're also going to be asking guests about what they get up to outside of work and also ask questions like, what would you tell your younger self? So with no further ado, let me introduce you to our first guest, Gayla Cowie. Welcome, Gayla, to our first podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell the listeners where you came from in terms of industries you've worked in, sectors and positions that you've held?
Sure. Hi, James. Thanks for inviting me on. So yes, I'm Gayla Cowie. I've got 20 odd years of experience, mainly in the HR and organisational development field. I spent 17 years with Nissan, working with them in the UK and globally. Sort of grew up in the automotive industry. I then moved to consumer tech. I worked with Dyson Technology back in the UK in a global role for them, supporting their R&D product development areas. And I've spent the last 4 years with Johnson Matthey, UK-listed company in sustainable technologies. I recently left GM and I'm about to start a new role as CHRO for Synthomer, a specialty chemical company based in the UK.
Exciting times.
Thank you.
Good. Well, thanks, Gayla. Great to have you on the pod. Every month we're going to be discussing a different leadership topic. This week, we're actually going to be talking about retaining employee engagement during periods of transformation and change. And I know that you've been doing a lot of that over the last 4 years. But before we launch into that discussion, let's just talk a little bit about you. So I was kicking off with the first question. Back when you were a child, where did you see your career going? What was your first childhood dream job?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a librarian. I love reading. I study literature. I love books and I love organizing and cataloging things. You know, what could be better? Until a few of my friends and people who knew me well pointed out that I also hate silence, love music, love people and socializing. And I very quickly realized that actually sitting in the library all day would drive me entirely mad.
Okay, yeah, no, interesting. Well, yeah, no, I definitely would see you as much more of an extrovert. But out of interest, so how from librarian to HR, how on earth did you end up in the world of HR from there? Tell us about that journey.
Yeah, well, I think my parents also thought that working in a library might not be quite what I was cut out for. No one in my family worked in business at all, so it was an interesting place to come from. But an older cousin was in HR and had a kind of good job, and in my parents' views, she had a great job, in fact, working for a local authority. And I work shadowed her. And what I loved about it was the variety of what she did, from kind of macro planning stuff to individual employee cases, real variety, really exciting. And I thought, yeah, this is something I could get stuck into. And from there went on and did a qualification and then started out in some HR roles.
I often hear that from HR leaders. It's the variety. No one day is ever the same, is it? I think.
Yeah. And it really does take you from the sort of minutiae of individual issues right up to the sort of broader strategy, usually within the course of every day.
Yeah, no, great. And you've obviously got a vast amount of experience in the world of HR. So in terms of challenge, what would you say have been the toughest challenges you've had to deal with in your career?
Yeah, I've been really fortunate. I've dealt with such a variety of things. And as you say, globally and in different countries and cultures. If I reflect back on my career to date, possibly the toughest challenge I took on was when I moved to Japan. I lived in Japan for 3 years with Nissan. And I took on 2 roles simultaneously. One was a quite a strategic role around succession planning for the kind of top execs of Renault Nissan. And another was a very operational job, which was running a region for Nissan, the Asia Oceania region. Running the 2 roles at the same time, not only from a hours in the day perspective, but headspace and how to sort of focus time and attention was extremely challenging. Looking back, I also had very, very young children, was living in a completely different culture, was traveling a huge amount. So I think context puts it together. I remember my boss at the time said, it's like weight training, Gayla. He said, once you've lifted this kind of weight, everything else is going to seem easy. And I'm not sure everything has seemed easy since, but it certainly set a new bar for me in terms of what I can.
Yeah. No, I bet, and that different perspective, that completely alien culture, must have been, must have broadened your horizons, I guess.
Yeah, having to learn on so many different levels all at the same time to sort of just keep up to speed and on top of things.
Yeah, and I suppose to keep you going on some of those darker days, whilst being a mother in a completely alien environment. Who have been the sort of role models you've looked to keep you inspired?
Yeah, there's no one person or historical figure, but what I have noticed over the years is the people that I admire and look up to and I guess try to emulate to some extent have a lot in common. It's basically what I admire is people who have big jobs, big responsibility, they've got a lot on their plate, but you would never know. So they come across as if they've got all the time in the world for people. They make things look simple, they make things look easy, even though that you know that in the background they're juggling, spinning so many plates and keeping things going. I've been really lucky. I've had a
Yeah,
couple of leaders who I've worked for like that, both at Dyson, GM, and at Nissan, who just kind of always seem calm under pressure and make things look simple. It's a real
that's,
skill.
yeah, the swan analogy.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I work
No,
towards it.
good. And in your job, then, what have been the things that have made life easier for you? Has it been tech? Has it been having great people around you? What have been the drivers?
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone would be lying if they didn't look to a good team in a leadership role. I mean, it's not new. It's maybe a bit cliched, but absolutely having a great team around me. And on two fronts really. One from just a pure capability perspective. So the team that I've just left in Johnson Matthey were fantastic and extremely capable, which allows you as a leader to step back and spend time on different things. But also just the connection and support that you get from being part of a team. So I think for those darker days, as you say, and also for the exciting challenges or creative problem solving, just belonging to a capable, strong team is makes everything so much easier.
Right, but I guess yeah, when the day is done, how do you switch off? How do you de-stress? Have you got hobbies? Have you got things that you like to do outside of work?
Yeah, I do. I do. And this is where I wonder whether the librarian thing wasn't such a strange idea because what I've found at this point in my life that I love to do is to put my head underwater for long periods of time. It's not as weird as it sounds. So I do a lot of marathon swimming, distance swimming.
Do you? Wow,
So that often involves having your head in water for 2, 3, up to 4 hours at a time. I do breathe while I'm in there, but
I
just
guess the
to
breathing is quite sort of almost like yeah, it keeps you focused because
I am not a fast swimmer, which is probably why it takes me so long, but it's a very meditative process and just the kind of endurance, resilience element of that. And obviously you're completely alone, disconnected from phone,
yeah,
from friends and family. So yeah, that's how I really recharge to be able to
brilliant.
connect again.
So tell me just briefly, how long is a marathon then? A marathon swim?
Well, yes. So don't want to sort of oversell myself, but kind of 10K distances, sort of either in rivers or last year I did the Coniston point to point swim in the Lake District in the UK. So that's about 8.5 kilometer swim. And I think I'm on good authority that that's classed as the equivalent of a marathon running distance
Amazing.
in swimming terms.
Wow, wow. Well, that's puts me to shame. Yeah. Well, looking at where you are now and lessons that you've learned, if you could take a time capsule back to your early 20s, what would you tell yourself in terms of advising on the road ahead?
It's a great question. Don't be a librarian. You'll hate it. I think, honestly, James, I think chill out is what I would say to my younger self. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I think high performing, high achieving people who push themselves can often become perfectionists. I think it's particularly a curse for women in business and want to do everything just right. And it can lead to taking yourself a bit too seriously and kind of losing the joy in things. And I think at this point in my life, I look back and think, actually, where's seek the joy, not always the perfection.
Mm,
And actually, funnily enough, when you do that, I think that's when you do your best work, when you're actually
yeah.
having fun alongside
Enjoy
it.
the journey.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's that's great advice. Thank you. So at the beginning, I mentioned that this week we're going to talk about retaining employee engagement during periods of transformation and change. And I guess with your position over the last 4 years at Johnson Matthey, what were the initial challenges that you faced as you walked into that role?
When I joined Johnson Matthey, I actually joined to run two of the sort of newer businesses, the high growth businesses in batteries and hydrogen space. And the core business at the time was called Clean Air and is mainly focused around automotive catalysts for ICE engines. When I joined, that was termed the kind of the legacy business, the core business, and I was in the growth businesses. And actually, within a year, we decided to exit the battery materials space. And that left me personally with a choice of did I want to work with the Clean Air business, or did I want to move on and do something else, maybe something more in the growth space again. And I chose to stay with JM and to move into Clean Air because JM's a fantastic business. And I was also curious about what change was needed in Clean Air. And so maybe I saw the Clean Air business from the outside. And then when I came into the Clean Air business, what I saw was a business that had been through huge transformation. It had moved from a regional model to a global model. It was just after COVID. So I think that rocked every business. And the people were feeling a little bit bruised. There was a narrative around both within the business and outside that this was a kind of sunsetting business. ICE engines are going to go, electric vehicles are the future. This is legacy. It's going to wind down. And also the business wasn't at that point hitting its targets, which was putting some additional pressure. And it was a very formal organization, very hierarchical, with quite a lot of low trust. People seemed a bit unsure and nervous. Despite the previous leadership sort of attempts and the restructuring that had gone on, people weren't in a great space. So that's what I decided to take on as a challenge with a new CEO for the business who was coming in around the same time.
Okay, new CEO joining as well. So that was, I guess that's quite good in a way because you both can be joined up in your thinking. Is that because it's a fresh both?
Yeah, exactly. And that was one of the reasons I took the opportunity um, as a sort of chance to do something new together.
Good. And looking at your working with the new CEO for that business, what was your people vision for the business and how did you plan to achieve it in terms of where it was and where you wanted it to be?
Yeah. So, I mean, the business, great people, really smart, leading in this technology and very loyal and committed to the overall purpose of what they were delivering through the product. And it had been a very successful and still was a very profitable business, but lacking a kind of inspirational strategy for the people that really connected with people, needed a much stronger connection to them. Why are we doing what we're doing? How long is it going to last? Where's it going to take us? So we worked with the CEO and then with a leadership team that I reshaped that we can talk through about. First of all, what is our clear strategy, talks to our people and gives them a kind of reason to believe. How do we turn that into clear objectives and goals for people that they can connect into that strategy? And then that immediately led us to, okay, there are too many layers. This organization is too busy to get clear messaging through. So how do we reduce some of that hierarchy and really change the approach we took on communications? My CEO used to use the phrase all the time, open and honest two-way communication. And I think that kind of comes to the heart of some of the things that people felt were missing at that time that we needed to really work on.
And I suppose more specifically, what were the sort of 2 or 3 key strategies, specific strategies that you implemented to start that transformation journey?
Yeah. So, I mean, that strategy piece of work that we did it ourselves because it really needed to speak to us as a leadership team. What motivates us? Why are we here? To have something really authentic that would speak to the rest of the organization. We focused on the internal combustion engine. How long is that going to, what opportunities are there for the Clean Air business over the coming years? Looking at the reality that that's actually a very durable business, that it's going to be around for a long time and that we're a key player in that market. And also looked at adjacent technologies, which gives our science population particularly just a little bit more excitement around adjacent products and pieces of work that they can look at. So getting that strategy really crisp and also very much focusing on the people element of the strategies. The so what's in it for me? What do I get out of being part of this business? Well, you get to grow. You're in a global business. We're going to develop you and invest in you. You're going to get exposure to all of these different types of market. You're in an automotive industry that's going through huge transition linked to the overall energy transition. So these are all massive experiences that you wouldn't get in other sectors, in other industries. So how do we speak to that? We also changed our leadership team And we did a really, really, really simple thing, which turned out to be hugely effective for that leadership team. So we got in a room for a couple of days. It sounds so simple, it's almost laughable, but and actually it was my CEO's idea to give him that credit. And I thought at the time, is this really going to make much difference? What we did was we wrote up on Post-it notes what we were accountable for in our roles. And then we went around and we challenged each other and we talked about, are you really accountable for that? Actually, I didn't think you were accountable for that. I thought I was accountable for that. Or you've not got on that list this, and this is what I actually look to you for. And it was a brilliant way to get out on the table where there was duplication in accountabilities, as inevitably there is, or where I was running fast at something that I thought was really important. And actually my colleague had no idea that that's what I was working on. So we spent a good couple of days just thrashing out who's accountable for what in this business and how do we make sure it's really sharp, it's achievable, it's clear, and there's no duplication. And then we took that out to the organization and said, okay, based on that, here's the strategy, here's where we're headed, here's why we can all believe in this business going forward, and here's what we're each going to contribute to deliver that. And that time together was also something that really ran through our kind of way of operating, is investing in the leadership team to spend really quality time together, to have those debates, to build relationships and be much more transparent with each other and with the rest of the organization.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll pause there. Those are the big things. And communications, which I can talk a bit more about as well. Is a huge
Yeah. Well, I suppose with the accountability with the team, did you find there were some people that ended up with far more in their to-do list? And did you have to sort of pare some of that back so there was an equal sharing of the load?
Yeah, we did. And debates of, hang on a minute, how on earth can you expect me to be accountable for all of this? Classic in HR is always culture. Who owns culture? Who's accountable for delivering culture? What does it mean when you say that that's my responsibility versus your responsibility?
Mm.
Through that process, we also were able to deprioritize things. I don't think we took anything totally off the list, but we were able to say, okay, hang on, if we think our operations leader has way too much that we're expecting, what's absolutely critical in this next 12 months phase? Where do we want to spend our time?
What to tackle first? Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, no, good. And you mentioned the communication. So could you just elaborate on the changes you made in terms of tone of voice and communication with employees?
Yeah. So as well as the strategy and the objectives, the other really big change we made is how we communicated. So we were relatively traditional in how we were communicating with our people, mainly through email or sort of big one-way town halls. And we did some analysis. So started with some data, had a great comms leader, and he was able to show that people aren't reading these emails and they're not clicking through and it's not having the impact. So we scrapped all of that and we moved to much more dynamic communication. So we used the Viva Engage, I think previously the Yammer platform, more like a social media type. We used video blogging. So we got people to go when they were on business trips, for example, to do video diaries. We changed our town hall format to use a much more kind of chat show, sofa based interview with live questions coming in as well, to make sure that people knew that they could have their
Voices were
heard.
heard.
They could ask their questions. So just really shifted the tone. It was very noticeable. People were sort of saying, oh wow, this feels really different. This isn't something I've seen before. We had to coach our leadership a lot through that because they had to be front and center. So making sure that they were commenting, they were posting. But because it was a relatively hierarchical organization at the time, when leadership took the lead, other people quickly got on board and realized that this really was a way of breaking down that hierarchy, because on those kind of social platforms, people are far, every voice is pretty equal. So yeah, made a big difference.
Great. So it sounds like a massive uptick in communication and engagement. But I guess the outcomes of that, in terms of the measurable outcomes of the transformation efforts, what were they?
Yeah.
Proof of the pudding.
Yeah, this is actually one of the reasons I guess I'm most proud of the work over the last 3-4 years, because first of all, the business results improved, massively. So we started to hit all of our targets every half year. And I think that's, the most important metric. Alongside that, we were increasing our employee engagement, and every survey that we sent out, our engagement score went up for the business. And we were doing some pretty tough things around the same time, because as part of streamlining, we reduced our headcount somewhere in the order of 20 or so percent over that time. So it wasn't that we were, always giving good, easy messages. And it wasn't that people didn't have to work incredibly hard to achieve the results we did, but we improved employee engagement. We improved our net promoter score. So our customers were happier with the way we were working. And we ultimately improved the results we were delivering.
It's amazing. I mean, to go through that sort of level of restructuring and redundancy by the sounds of things, and to see your net promoter scores go up. I mean, was that because of the communication being so transparent, so there were no surprises?
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. So and this is something I learned personally during that time. The CEO I was working with would sometimes say things that, with my earlier career training, I would tense up a little bit and think, I don't think we want to say that or be that transparent. Actually, what I learned, what are we afraid of? We're working with adults. Let's treat people like adults. A lot of people left the business during that time. We were treating everyone who was leaving well, but we also put a lot of focus and attention on the people who were staying and how did they feel about that, and how did they feel about the colleagues that they were seeing leave, and how the business was restructuring, and
Yeah.
keeping that constant dialogue open with them. And because it all linked back to the strategy, and because we were quite clear about the cost reduction that we needed, the change that we needed to deliver the strategy.
Did you, in terms of some of the insights about when employees, obviously the people that were left within the organization, but the people that left the organization as well, what were some of the insights in terms of treating those employees with dignity when they left the organization and giving them support?
Yeah. And listen, we didn't get everything right every time. There was one particular location where we got a lot of feedback that we'd exited people too quickly, and we didn't feel that we had shown the level of respect that we wanted to. And we tried to amend that by bringing them back for a farewell and things. But in the vast majority of cases, we moved quickly. We gave people real clarity. Something I've learned over my career is that if people do have to exit a business, then obviously you have to go through all of the relevant consultation. But actually, people want to know their personal impact as early as possible. So the quicker you can let someone know what that means for them, for their life, for their family, and work with them on that, the more comfortable they're going to be.
Brilliant. Good. That's been very, very interesting to talk that through. And I guess looking at your transformation experience and in terms of HR, what are your thoughts in terms of the future of HR and its role in business transformation?
Yeah, I mean, business transformation almost feels like a redundant term, in that
Yes,
what business is not in transformation at
true.
any point in time. And I think we probably got to stop thinking about HR as separate from the business and separate from business transformation. I've been really fortunate. The people I've worked with have allowed me in on all aspects of the business end to end, because I think if you're responsible for the people agenda in a company, transformation comes from the people. It comes from how people behave. It comes from how they feel about the organization. And having that very privileged role in HR allows you to help set the environment for people to do their best work, giving them the purpose and the clarity, celebrating success together. So I think HR is absolutely integral to business, full stop. People are the heart of the vast majority of businesses. And when any business is going through transformation, what's your transformation strategy and what's your people strategy? They're almost one and the same in my experience.
The current, it's a hugely emotive topic at the moment, but how do you see the role of AI and technology impacting HR practices in
Yeah.
the coming years?
Yeah, we couldn't do a podcast without asking about AI. I mean, I see AI as a huge opportunity for the people and HR function to further elevate our position in two ways. So I think there's amazing AI tools out there that are developing so fast to help the HR function, to take away some of the more routine, mundane stuff, give data insights, interrogating data sets and things. But more than that, I think I heard someone talk recently about liminal spaces. So those transition spaces from one thing to the next, where the post-COVID world was a brilliant example in recent years. And I think AI is another one. No one's really sure how things are going to look. So employees, leaders are all at different places on their personal journey, and change comes with a lot of fear. So people are, nervous about what AI means for them, for their roles. And that presents a huge opportunity for HR to step in,
Yeah.
to prepare leaders, to work with the workforce, and to kind of help people navigate through this liminal period, and also like we've literally never seen this before. So it's a whole new world that we're moving into.
Yeah. It's and knowing, I guess, which tools will be of true benefit and which are entrants to the market, which will disappear. It's
Yeah, and I mean, are we ever really going to know? Or we're definitely not going to get that right every time, are we? So being prepared to try and to fail, being prepared to sort of learn quickly and move on, all of the stuff that we encourage our leaders to do anyway, I think gets put to the test with
yeah.
AI even more.
And obviously there'll be a number of people listening to the podcast from HR and looking to take their career forward in HR. What advice would you give to HR professionals looking to drive change and transformation in their organizations?
Yeah, I think partner closely, be really integral to the business, really understand the business, build trust with your leaders, which allows you to experiment. It gives you a bit of a freedom to license to operate, to challenge. Don't drink the Kool-Aid too much. So it's easy to sometimes write the strategy and then believe your own hype. I had a great team from our Poland organization who had what they termed their mockers would come and give critical evaluation of some of the comms that they were going to put out. So literally inviting the people who you know are going to be your biggest skeptics into the room to say, what do you think? I think it's a really important way of staying close to what people really think.
Yeah.
And not sort of believing the leadership hype. But being bold, trust your convictions, and communication. Communicate well, communicate often, and make sure it's two-way.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like that's almost you probably answered my next question. Actually, I was thinking about your own lessons you've learned in terms of your HR career. Are there some gems that you haven't mentioned there that you could impart?
I don't know about gems, but I'll dig deeper. I think one of the things I've learned over the last few years is actually that the single biggest driver of employee workforce colleague engagement is performance, is a high performing business. Everyone wants to be part of a successful business. And I think too often, both in HR and as business leaders, we sort of pit the two things against each other. You can either have a happy, engaged workforce or you can have a high performing business. And the two things are almost opposites. And I've learned, and this most recent experience has just reinforced it, it's quite the opposite. They are one in the same. I think the other broad piece of advice from my work is don't limit yourself. Don't draw boundaries around your role, whether that's an HR role or a leadership role.
You often hear it, don't you? So being a business first HR person. I hear
Yeah,
that a lot.
yeah. I'll admit that phrase, which I've heard a lot, sort of has always slightly baffled me.
Yeah, no, definitely. And just looking at the time you spent at Johnson Matthey, what's been the most rewarding aspect of your role?
Well, it's been a great journey, particularly the last 3 years. I had the pleasure of a leadership conference with the team in June and literally standing on the stage looking out across the group and seeing the leadership team that we'd brought together, seeing how engaged they were, how capable they were, how clear on the mission and what they needed to do next. Building a great HR team also, that was very sad to leave. So yeah, I think a 3-year period is a nice time to reflect.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I suppose the final question in terms of you mentioned the distance swimming and the sort of the relaxing, how that helps you switch off. But I suppose balancing the professional challenges and also the personal well-being, because I mean some of these transformation journeys you must have been on have been very stressful, and tricks you've learned in terms of when you're actually at work, not near the pool or the lake, that you can you
Yeah. I mean, I think a little bit what I've already said. I think we can all take ourselves a little bit too seriously sometimes. So I think stepping back and putting things in perspective, doing the best you can, and realizing that good is sometimes good enough is really important. And it might sound funny. What I have to be clear on what I'm saying here. Blend the two a little bit, the personal and professional. I'm not someone who draws very strict boundaries between the two, and that doesn't work for everyone. I understand that. And I'm not saying that I turn up to work in a swimsuit, just to be really clear. That's not something I'd recommend. But I think, enjoying the work that you do and understanding that when you've got responsibility, you can't always just switch it off at the office door and move on to something else. But finding a healthy way to get a nice blend, spending time on the things that give you energy. That phrase about being in flow.
yes.
Doing your best work when it's something that makes you feel good. I think applying that at work, not only looking for those energy giving moments outside of work. I don't think that's a sustainable model for life.
Yeah, no, great. Well, thank you, Gayla. I think you certainly seem to be someone who gets far more energy out of HR and transformation than being a librarian. So well
it's a
done.
little bit too late to switch, I think, but
Never too late,
right
but
it's never
wouldn't
too
recommend it. No, good. And certainly, yeah, some of those bits of advice there around stepping back sometimes, and also stepping obviously out of HR and into the business and being yourself. They're real useful gems. Thank you so much for sharing with us today, and for being our first guest.
Yeah, it's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you, James. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you, Gayla. Well, as they say, that is a wrap. Thanks to everyone who tuned in today, and a big thanks to Gayla for being our guest. I hope you enjoyed the Aston Fisher Leadership Series, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on LinkedIn so that you don't miss the next one when it drops.